Dr. Sarah Chen had spent 15 years studying quantum entanglement, but nothing in her research had prepared her for this moment. The quantum detection array at the Mojave Deep Space Research Station had been operating for 3 years without incident. Until now. She stared at the readout, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The pattern was impossible. Quantum particles don't just spontaneously organize themselves into regular sequences. Yet there it was, pulsing across her screen with mathematical precision. "Dr. Willis, you need to see this," she called out to her supervisor, who was dozing in his office across the hall. The older physicist shuffled over, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the monitors. "These readings," he trailed off, squinting at the screen. "They're not random noise." "No," Sarah agreed, pulling up a visualization of the quantum pattern. "They're structured. Look at the periodicity. It's almost like someone's using quantum entanglement as a communication channel." Willis finished, suddenly wide awake. The implications were staggering. Humanity had theorized about quantum communication for decades, but they'd barely managed to entangle a few particles over short distances. This signal was utilizing Earth's natural quantum field like a cosmic telephone line. Sarah's fingers flew across the keyboard, running analysis after analysis. The pattern repeated every 108 seconds exactly. Far too precise to be natural. More importantly, it was gradually changing, becoming more complex. "It's adapting," she breathed. "The signal is learning our quantum field's properties in real time." Within hours, the Mojave Station's quiet research facility had transformed into a hub of frenzied activity. Government officials arrived in black SUVs, military personnel established a secure perimeter, and scientists from every major research institution were patched in via encrypted video feeds. As the sun set over the desert, casting long shadows across the facility's solar arrays, Sarah made the breakthrough. The quantum signals weren't just organized, they were carrying information. With the help of the facility's quantum computer, she began the painstaking process of decoding them. The first message was simple: "We see you." The second was more urgent: "We need help." The third message made Sarah's blood run cold: "We are trapped. Your solar system's quantum field is our only lifeline." General Laura Martinez, the newly appointed head of Earth's Extraterrestrial Response Division, stood at the front of the packed conference room. The facility's largest screen displayed a three-dimensional map of the solar system, with a strange distortion marked near Saturn's rings. "Dr. Chen, please explain what we're looking at," Martine said, her voice steady despite the extraordinary circumstances. Sarah stepped forward, her hand steady even as her heart raced. "The signals are coming from what appears to be a dimensional pocket, a bubble in space-time. Based on the data we've received, there's an entire fleet of ships trapped inside. They're using incredibly advanced quantum technology, but something about the pocket is interfering with their systems. And they chose to contact us. Why?" A skeptical voice called from the back of the room. "Because we're the only civilization in this sector still maintaining analog technology alongside quantum systems," Sarah explained. "They've observed us for some time. They know about our tendency to keep old technology functional, even as we develop new systems." The room erupted in murmurs. Humanity's supposedly primitive habit of maintaining old technology alongside the new had always been seen as a quirk, even a weakness. Now it might be their greatest strength. A message flashed across Sarah's tablet. Another quantum transmission, decoded in real time. "Time is critical. Our quantum drives are failing. 2 million lives depend on your response." General Martinez read the message and straightened her shoulders. "How long do they have?" Sarah ran the calculations quickly. Based on their power decay rate, 3 weeks at most. After that, their life support systems will fail. "And can we help them? Actually help in civilization advanced enough to create quantum drives?" Sarah thought about the old shipping containers behind the facility, filled with carefully maintained analog equipment that most modern facilities had long since discarded. Equipment immune to quantum interference. Equipment that might just save 2 million lives. Yes, she said firmly. But we'll have to do it the human way. By combining the old with the new, the primitive with the advanced. We'll need to bring our analog past into their quantum future. Martinez nodded once, decisively. Then let's get to work. Dr. Chen, you'll lead the scientific team. I want solutions on my desk in 48 hours. As the room cleared out, Sarah remained at her station, watching the quantum signals pulse across her screen. Somewhere out there, trapped in a fold of space-time, 2 million beings were placing their hopes in humanity's unique approach to technology and progress. She opened a new file and began to type. Project Bridge. Integrating analog systems with quantum technology for extraterrestrial rescue operations. The next 3 weeks would change everything, not just for the trapped aliens, but for humanity's place in the cosmos. Earth's greatest weakness was about to become its greatest strength, and Sarah Chen would be at the heart of it all. She took a sip of her cold coffee and smiled. Sometimes the oldest solutions were the best ones, and nobody knew that better than humans. Captain Maria Petrova stood in the massive hangar of the Baikonur Cosmodrome, her eyes fixed on the strange collection of equipment being loaded into humanity's newest spacecraft. The irony wasn't lost on her. Earth's most advanced vessel would be carrying some of its oldest technology into space. Those analog systems really survived 40 years in storage, she asked, watching as workers carefully mounted a restored Cold War-era navigation console alongside modern quantum displays. Dr. Chen nodded, consulting her tablet. The Soviets built them to last. More importantly, they're completely immune to quantum interference. When everything else fails, these will keep working. The rescue mission had come together with unprecedented speed. 20 nations had contributed resources, setting aside political differences in the face of humanity's first extraterrestrial rescue operation. The vessel they'd constructed was named Bridgemaker, a hybrid of modern technology and carefully restored analog systems. Tell me again why we can't just use modern equipment, asked Lieutenant James Rodriguez, the mission's communications specialist. He was young, barely 30, and had grown up in a world of quantum computers and AI assistants. Maria smiled, remembering her days commanding nuclear submarines. Because sometimes the old ways are the most reliable. Our new technology is incredible, but it's also vulnerable. These analog systems, they're immune to the quantum distortions we'll face. They can't be hacked, corrupted, or interfered with. Like cockroaches after a nuclear war, James muttered, but there was respect in his voice as he ran his hands over the vintage radio equipment. The team gathered for their final briefing. 30 people from 12 nations, chosen not just for their expertise, but for their experience with older technology. Submarine commanders, radio operators, mechanical engineers, people who understood the value of analog redundancy. Dr. Chen presented the latest data from the quantum signals. The alien situation is deteriorating faster than expected. Their quantum drives aren't just failing. They're creating cascading failures in their other systems. They've lost artificial gravity in 3 ships already. How many souls are we talking about? Maria asked, though she already knew the answer. 2 million spread across 12 ships. They're a refugee fleet, carrying the survivors of their civilization. Their home system was destabilized by a quantum experiment gone wrong. That's why they're so dependent on quantum technology. It's all they have left. Maria studied the mission plans projected on the wall. The Bridgemaker would need to navigate through Saturn's rings, locate a dimensional pocket invisible to normal sensors, and somehow help beings whose technology was centuries ahead of Earth's, all using a combination of bleeding-edge quantum tech and equipment that belonged in a museum. We launch in 12 hours, she announced to her team. Get some rest. When we wake up, we make history. As the others filed out, Dr. Chen lingered. Captain, there's something else. The latest quantum transmissions. They're showing signs of degradation. The aliens are losing their ability to communicate. Maria absorbed this news with the calm of someone who had faced impossible situations before. Then we'd better not be late. Humanity's got a reputation to maintain. The pre-launch preparations were a study in contrasts. Modern quantum sensors were calibrated alongside analog gauges. Digital computers ran diagnostics while mechanical backups were manually checked. The Bridgemaker itself was a marvel, a vessel that bridged not just space but time, carrying the best of humanity's past and present into an uncertain future. In the crew quarters, Maria found her team making their own preparations. Lieutenant Rodriguez was practicing Morse code, his fingers tapping rhythmically on his desk. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their engineering specialist, was reviewing manuals for both quantum drives and diesel engines. Everyone understood that their greatest asset wasn't the technology they carried, but their ability to adapt and improvise. 6 hours before launch, a final quantum message came through. We trust in human ingenuity. Our children speak of you as the people who remember, who keep the old ways alive alongside the new. Do not let them down. Maria touched the old compass she wore on a chain around her neck, a family heirloom from her grandfather's days at sea. Sometimes the oldest tools were the most reliable, and sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones. Humanity had never forgotten this wisdom, and now that knowledge might save an entire civilization. As the sun rose over the Kazakh steppe, the Bridgemaker stood ready on its launch pad, steam rising from its cooling systems into the cold morning air. Inside, 30 humans prepared to prove that their species' greatest strength wasn't their technology, but their refusal to abandon any tool that might prove useful. All systems check, Maria announced over the internal comm, both quantum and analog. Ready for quantum ignition, Dr. Chen confirmed from her station. Old school systems are go, Lieutenant Rodriguez added with a grin. Maria settled into her command chair, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility on her shoulders. In her mind, she could almost hear the voices of 2 million beings waiting in the darkness near Saturn, hoping that humanity's unique approach to progress would be their salvation. Launch control, this is Bridgemaker. We are ready for ascent. The countdown began, and with it, humanity's boldest rescue mission, one that would prove that sometimes the best way forward is to remember what you've left behind. The first sign of trouble came 3 days into their journey, as the Bridgemaker crossed the orbit of Mars. Dr. Chen's quantum sensors began registering unusual fluctuations in the background radiation of space. At first, they dismissed it as instrument error, until the ancient Geiger counters in the cargo hold started clicking with increasing intensity. Solar Observation Station on Mercury just sent an alert. Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, his hands moving between modern and vintage communication equipment. Massive coronal mass ejection detected. It's unlike anything they've seen before. Maria leaned forward in her command chair, watching as the holographic display showed the approaching wall of stellar plasma. Time to impact. 4 hours, Dr. Chen replied, her face illuminated by the glow of multiple screens. But that's not the worst part. The ejection is carrying a quantum signature. It's going to interact with the dimensional pocket holding the alien fleet. The implications hit everyone at once. A normal solar storm was dangerous enough, but one carrying quantum-charged particles could tear apart the already fragile pocket of space-time, holding 2 million refugees. Status of the alien fleet, Maria demanded. Dr. Chen's fingers flew over her console. Their quantum shields are failing. The pocket itself is becoming unstable. We have maybe 6 hours before it collapses completely. That doesn't give us much time, Maria muttered. She pulled up the ship's schematics on her personal display. Options. Dr. Tanaka spoke up from her engineering station. The quantum drives can't handle this level of solar radiation. If we try to push through using modern systems, we'll be flying blind. Then we don't use the modern systems, Maria decided. She turned to Rodriguez. Break out the Mark IV radiation shields. The ones they used on the old Mars missions. Those ancient things. Someone protested. They're practically prehistoric. They're also simple enough to work even in a quantum storm, Maria countered. Dr. Tanaka, how quickly can we reconfigure our power systems to run on the backup analog circuits? 20 minutes, maybe 15 if we bypass some safety protocols. Do it. Dr. Chen, keep monitoring the quantum pocket. Even if we can't use our quantum systems, we need to know what's happening to that fleet. The next hour was organized chaos as the crew transformed their cutting-edge vessel into something that would have looked more at home in the previous century. Analog gauges replaced quantum readouts. Physical switches took over from neural interfaces. The ship's AI was powered down, leaving navigation in human hands. Approaching the leading edge of the storm, Rodriguez reported. The view through the forward windows had turned ominous, space itself seeming to twist with quantum distortions. All hands, secure for turbulence, Maria ordered. Switch to analog systems. Now. The ship's modern displays went dark as power was diverted to the old systems. Emergency lighting cast a red glow across the bridge. The gentle hum of quantum computers was replaced by the mechanical chattering of analog equipment. Storm contact in 3, 2, 1. The bridge maker shuddered as the first wave hit. Outside, space itself seemed to be tearing apart as solar radiation interacted with quantum particles. The modern sensors were useless, overwhelmed by the chaos, but the old radiation shields held firm. Navigation, Maria called out. Inertial guidance is holding, Rodriguez responded, his hands dancing across the ancient controls. Backup gyroscopes are giving us stable readings. We can do this. Hour after hour, they pushed through the storm. The crew worked in perfect sync, reading analog gauges, making manual adjustments, trusting in technology that had seemed obsolete just days ago. When the quantum communication system failed completely, they switched to old-fashioned radio, using the storm's own magnetic field to boost their signals. Getting something on the low-band frequency, Rodriguez announced suddenly. It's Morse code. The aliens, in their desperate situation, had figured out how to use one of humanity's oldest communication methods. The message was simple but clear. Hurry. The pocket is destabilizing faster than predicted. Dr. Chen reported, reading from one of the few quantum displays still functioning. The aliens are trying to hold it together, but their quantum technology is being overwhelmed by the storm. Maria studied their position on the mechanical star charts. They were close to Saturn, but the storm was getting worse. The next few hours would determine not just the success of their mission, but the survival of 2 million refugees. All hands, she announced over the internal comm. What we're about to attempt has never been done before. We're going to navigate through a quantum-charged solar storm, find a dimensional pocket we can barely detect, and save 2 million lives. And we're going to do it using technology our grandparents would recognize. Why? Because sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Sometimes keeping the past alive is what helps us save the future. The bridge maker pressed on through the storm, its hull creaking under the strain. Inside, 30 humans worked with quiet determination, their hands on ancient dials and switches, proving with every passing moment that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in abandoning the old for the new, but in knowing how to use both. As Saturn's rings became visible through the storm, Maria allowed herself a small smile. They weren't out of danger, not by a long shot, but they'd proven something important. In a universe of quantum drives and dimensional pockets, there was still room for simple solutions and old technology. Sometimes that was exactly what was needed to save the day. The dimensional pocket appeared on their primitive radar as nothing more than a slight distortion in Saturn's rings, barely visible through the lingering effects of the solar storm. But to Dr. Chen's few functioning quantum sensors, it was a gaping wound in spacetime, and it was growing unstable. Life support readings from the alien fleet are critical, she reported, her voice tense. Their quantum systems are completely offline. They're running on emergency power, and that's failing too. The bridge maker hung in space less than a kilometer from the pocket's edge. They could see the alien ships now, massive, crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them. Once they must have been beautiful. Now they floated dark and lifeless, trapped in their own quantum prison. "We need to establish communication," Maria ordered. "All channels, all frequencies. Try everything." Lieutenant Rodriguez worked his station with practiced efficiency, sending out signals across the electromagnetic spectrum. Radio waves, microwaves, even primitive light signals, anything that might penetrate the quantum interference. Dr. Yuki Tanaka studied the readings from their jury-rigged sensor array with growing concern. The pocket's quantum field is completely scrambled. It's like trying to read a book where all the pages have been torn up and reassembled randomly. James Okonjo, the youngest member of their engineering team, had been unusually quiet during their approach. Now he spoke up, his Nigerian accent thick with excitement. "Dr. Chen, could you display the quantum field variations on the old oscilloscope?" Chen raised an eyebrow, but complied. The ancient cathode ray tube flickered to life, displaying wave patterns that pulsed and shifted continuously. "Now, can you isolate just the base frequency?" James asked, pulling out a tablet. The waves on the oscilloscope simplified into a clearer pattern. James held up his tablet, which displayed a music visualization app. The patterns were almost identical. "I knew it," he breathed. "The quantum field, it's not random. It's harmonic, like music." Maria leaned forward. "Explain." "In my spare time, I study classical music theory," James said, his fingers moving across his tablet. "These quantum variations, they follow the same mathematical principles as musical harmonics. Look, the fundamental frequency matches a G sharp and the overtones." Dr. Chen's eyes widened as she made the connection. The aliens aren't just trapped by the pocket. They're trapped by resonance. Their quantum drives created a harmonic pattern that folded space, and now they can't break free because they can't disrupt the pattern. "But we can," James said excitedly. "Not with quantum technology, but with sound. Real physical sound waves transmitted through space." "Sound doesn't travel through space," someone objected. "No," Dr. Tanaka cut in, catching on to James's idea. "But mechanical vibrations do. If we can match the quantum harmonic pattern with physical vibrations, we could create a counter-resonance." Maria finished. "Break the pattern holding the pocket together." She turned to James. "What do you need?" The next 2 hours were a flurry of activity as they repurposed equipment in ways its original designers never imagined. They converted the ship's structural integrity field generators into massive speakers. James worked with Dr. Chen to translate quantum frequencies into musical notes, creating what he called the symphony of spacetime. "Ready for first attempt," James announced finally. The bridge had been transformed into something between a recording studio and a physics lab. Starting with the base frequency, the ship vibrated slightly as the first note played, a deep subsonic pulse that they felt more than heard. On their screens, they could see the quantum pocket responding, its edges wavering. "It's working," Dr. Chen reported excitedly. "The pocket's resonance is shifting, adding the next harmonic." A second note joined the first, then a third. James conducted the strange orchestra with his tablet, adjusting frequencies with microscopic precision. The alien ships began to glow faintly as their quantum systems responded to the physical vibrations. Suddenly, their radio crackled to life. A voice, clearly artificial but filled with wonder, spoke in carefully practiced English. "We hear you. Your music, it wakes our ships." "Now," Maria ordered, "full sequence." James's fingers flew across his controls, and the bridge maker sang. There was no other word for it. The ship transmitted a complex series of vibrations, a song written in mathematics and played on instruments of steel and energy. The quantum pocket began to unravel, its structure dissolving like mist in morning sunlight. One by one, lights began to flicker on across the alien fleet. Their quantum drives hummed to life, their frequencies automatically matching the bridge-maker's song. The pocket collapsed completely, leaving 12 massive ships floating free in normal space. Quantum readings stabilizing. Dr. Chen reported, her voice thick with emotion. They're free. The alien voice returned, stronger now. Humans, you have done what we thought impossible. You have saved us not with advanced technology, but with music, with mathematics made beautiful, with vibrations in the void. Maria smiled. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones, and sometimes it takes looking at a problem from an entirely new perspective to find the answer. We had forgotten, the alien voice said. In our rush to advance, we forgot that the universe speaks in many languages, not just quantum mechanics, but music and mathematics and simple physical laws. You humans, you remember, you keep the old knowledge alive alongside the new. As the alien ships began to move under their own power for the first time in weeks, James sat back at his station, exhausted but grinning. You know what's funny? He said to no one in particular. We just saved an advanced alien civilization with the same principles that let me tune my grandfather's old piano. Maria looked out at the massive fleet, now glowing with restored power, and thought about the strange path that had led them here. Humanity had sent its most advanced ship into space, only to save the day with oscilloscopes, sound waves, and a young engineer's love of music. Perhaps that was their species' greatest strength, not the technology they created, but their ability to see connections where others saw only chaos, to remember that every new discovery rested on the foundations of old knowledge, to know that sometimes the key to moving forward was remembering what lay behind. 2 weeks after the rescue, the Mojave Deep Space Research Station hummed with activity once again. This time, the facility's largest chamber had been converted into a meeting space where representatives from Earth sat across from their alien counterparts. The beings who called themselves the Harmonious introduced themselves properly at last. Dr. Sarah Chen couldn't help but marvel at how the aliens seemed to shimmer as they moved, their crystalline bodies refracting light in complex patterns. Captain Maria Petrova sat beside her, along with James Okonjo, whose musical solution had saved their civilization. On the other side of the table, the alien leader, who had introduced itself as First Resonance, waited with 3 of its companions. We have spent these past days studying your civilization more closely. First Resonance began, its translated voice carrying tones of genuine wonder. We believed we had reached the pinnacle of technological advancement. We were wrong. Your quantum technology is centuries ahead of ours, Sarah pointed out. Yet it was your primitive technology that saved us. First Resonance countered. We had become so focused on advancement that we forgot the fundamental principles that made that advancement possible. Our children no longer learn about simple machines, about sound waves, about the basic forces that shape our universe. Maria leaned forward. Where we come from, we have a saying. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. The aliens' crystalline forms flickered in what they had learned was amusement. Yes, we have been studying your idioms. They contain much wisdom. You humans, you are unique among all the species we have encountered. You race forward into the future while keeping one foot firmly planted in your past. James spoke up, his voice thoughtful. It's not just about keeping old technology around. It's about understanding the principles behind it. When you understand the basics, really understand them, you can see connections that might be missed if you only focus on advanced solutions. Precisely. First Resonance agreed. This is why we have come to a decision. We wish to establish Earth as the first nexus point in this sector of the galaxy. The humans exchanged glances. A nexus point? Sarah asked. A center of learning and problem-solving. First Resonance explained. There are many advanced civilizations among the stars, but few retain the breadth of knowledge that humanity possesses. Few maintain such a perfect balance between progress and preservation. The alien leader's form shifted, projecting a holographic map of the galaxy. We propose establishing a grand academy here on Earth, a place where species from across the galaxy can come to learn not just about advanced technology, but about the fundamental principles that make it possible. A place where your human perspective can help solve problems that pure advancement cannot. Sarah thought about her quantum detection array, sitting side by side with technology from the previous century, about how that combination had led to this moment. You want us to teach. We want you to do what humans do best: find unexpected solutions, make surprising connections, and remind the galaxy that sometimes the old ways have value. First resonances form, pulsed with earnest energy. Your planet would become a crucial hub in galactic civilization, not because you have the most advanced technology, but because you understand technology at every level. Maria smiled. So Earth becomes the galaxy's mechanics, the ones who know how things really work under the hood. An apt metaphor. First Resonance agreed. Your species has a unique talent for understanding both the cutting edge and the basics, the quantum and the mechanical, the digital and the analog. This is rare and precious. As the discussions continued late into the night, Sarah found herself looking out the facility's windows at the desert beyond. The old radio telescopes stood alongside modern quantum receivers, each serving its purpose, each valuable in its own way. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not the ability to create new technology, but the wisdom to preserve and understand the old alongside the new. The agreement was signed 3 days later. Earth would become the first nexus point in its sector of space, a place where civilizations could come to learn the art of balanced progress. The Harmonious would share their quantum technology, but in return, they wanted to learn about Earth's simpler solutions, about the basic principles their society had forgotten in its rush to advance. James found Sarah in her lab the night after the signing. She was looking at her quantum detection array, but she'd placed an old analog oscilloscope next to it. "You know what's funny?" he said, sitting down beside her. "We spent so long looking up at the stars, hoping to learn from advanced alien civilizations. Turns out they needed to learn from us just as much." Sarah nodded, running her hand along the oscilloscope's worn casing. "Because we never forgot that every quantum computer starts with a simple binary choice. Every faster-than-light drive begins with understanding basic motion. Every advanced civilization stands on the shoulders of simpler technologies." "We're going to change the galaxy," James said softly, "not by making it more advanced, but by helping it remember its foundations." Outside, the desert night was alive with possibility. The old radio telescopes turned slowly, listening to the stars just as they had for decades, while quantum receivers probed the mysteries of entangled particles. And somewhere up there, ships were already turning toward Earth, drawn by the promise of a place where the future and the past worked together in perfect harmony. Humanity had found its place among the stars not by abandoning its past, but by preserving it. Not by racing blindly forward, but by remembering to look back. In doing so, they had become something unique in the galaxy, a bridge between what was and what could be, between the simple and the complex, between the old ways and the new. And that perhaps was the greatest adventure of all.